if you are a marijuana smoker, I am giving you a potential trigger warning. I've been trying to be as soft and compassionate as I can and to explain it in a way that even the most fanatics of marijuana can still receive it. As this pre kind of introduction to what I'm going to say seems to be clearly depicting, is that I am not in favor of this plant. So let's start there. I'm going to make my position clear, but I'm happy to explain why is that. And that is, if since we're talking about ayahuasca, I think it would make sense for the explanation to compare them. And what I want to compare is one specific aspect of it, which is that with ayahuasca, what you're doing is going towards those parts of yourself that you are finally ready to confront, but that are within or close to your limits. Those things that you became an expert in ignoring, those things that are really painful, that are hard to confront. And so it is the exact opposite of running away. It is going towards the pain, towards those things that you ignored, towards those things that were too painful at some point that you weren't ready. And now you're finally moving towards that. Ayahuasca takes you to the root cause so that you can address it and never experience the pain of that again, whatever it is that it is taking you towards. So it is the exact opposite of a numbing mechanism. It's like if drinking alcohol is a way of numbing, drinking ayahuasca is a way of undrinking yourself. It's almost as if you would be drunk in your sober state and you are taking the drinking away. You are like moving towards those things that are hard to face. Now, I think before we even talk about marijuana, we need to touch upon numbing mechanisms in general. And this is where I started finding a lot of compassion for marijuana smokers or any other drinkers, heavy drug users, people addicted to porn or to news. It doesn't matter what it is. All of the things that I mentioned, including marijuana, are numbing mechanisms. This means that you feel your pain less. You run away from your pain. Or if running away feels like too strong, it's at least putting a little bit more distance between you and your pain. Now, why are numbing mechanisms okay? Numbing mechanisms are okay because sometimes healing something takes a set of conditions. You need to find the right healing tool. You need to find the right moment. You need to be ready. You need to have the right facilitator or the right support. And as you are finding those things, it might be too painful to deal with certain things. If you cannot sleep, right? Or if life is extremely unfulfilling and smoking marijuana takes that away, even if it is for a day or while the effects of marijuana are present, then I could never judge this. I used to. I want to be clear. I used to, but I am in a place where I don't judge this anymore because I understand that I also numb my pain in the places in which are too painful. And also I couldn't find a solution for it yet. Numbing mechanisms, if you will, are a way of buying time as you seek for real healing. I can't deal with this. And also I don't have a solution. Something's got to give. Okay, let's numb the pain. Now, what's the problem that has arisen in our society is that we are using numbing mechanisms not for what they are meant for, which is to buy you time as you seek for real healing, but as a replacement for real healing. So it's a little bit dangerous because if you don't feel your pain, you will have less of a, incentive or motivation to heal it.
Yeah.
I don't feel it. So what's a big deal? Right? It's like, all I need to do is skip, and I'm going to change marijuana now for antidepressants or sleeping pills or ibuprofen, or I have a headache every day, but it doesn't matter because every day I can pop this ibuprofen and it goes away. When the headache might be telling you, hey, you have a disc in your neck that it is out of place, just go to a chiropractor and you'll be fine. If you don't have the possibility of ibuprofen, you might deal with the headache enough times that at some point you'll be like, oh my God, I can't deal with this anymore. I need to take care of it. So you are going to start seeking for a solution which will lead you to finding it. But if you have the ibuprofen, you might have less of a motivation. So what marijuana does is it can help people sleep better. It can help people not feel their unfulfillment in life. It can help people become more creative. It can help people enjoy sex much better. So in a way, you're like, oh, what's the problem with that? The problem with that is that you might be able to enjoy sex as much if you find the reason why you are not enjoying it, which could be based on your own sexual trauma that you need to go find, release, and heal, and that you will probably have less of a motivation to do so if you have this tool that helps you numb that pain. One of the dangers with marijuana is that it is seen as benign. It is not seen as a numbing mechanism. It started in the US becoming legal as it started as this medical marijuana. And that name by itself already tells you, oh, it's a medicine. But medicines heal you. Medicines take you to the root cause. This is why I was comparing it with ayahuasca. And marijuana makes you not feel your pain, which is why you don't hear people drink ayahuasca every day, but you do hear people smoking marijuana. Not only you hear people smoking marijuana every day, that is the most common thing. Either people don't smoke or they smoke every day. Of course, there's those who smoke once every 3 months, once a year. I am not wanting to dismiss those people, but I think it is important to understand where we are at as a society as a whole. And either people smoke all the time, whether it is every day or twice a week, doesn't matter, or they just don't. And I think that speaks a lot for the character and the spirit of this plant. And what I've noticed is that people have a really hard time not smoking, those who are smoking it every day, a very hard time. It is hard for me I don't think I ever heard someone be like, oh my God, I can't drink ayahuasca this week. I'm dying. I really need it. Yeah. What you might hear is someone say, wow, I do have these things to work on. I don't know. I would like to have help in this. I've seen so many people struggle so much. And I feel like that struggle is the thing that I want to bring to you, dear listener who loves weed and who's really triggered by this conversation. Think about that struggle. Think about how hard it is not to have it. That to me is a red flag. And going into the spiritual realm through ayahuasca so many times, I had conversations with the spirit of marijuana. And the spirit of marijuana was very clear with me. Because spirits don't lie. Lying is more like a human quality to get out of trouble, but spirits are not in trouble, at least not in the same way in which we are. And my many conversations with her, she was always clear. She's, I am here to help people not feel their pain, and we are making a contract. The contract is you are going to smoke me. And what I'm going to give you is a relief from your pain, whether you are aware of it or not. A relief of your pain might feel like better sex, or might feel like a movie that it is funnier, or sleeping better. You might not feel that's what I'm doing, but that is ultimately what I'm doing. And what I'm going to ask for you is your life force. And here's another. So basically, you're giving your life force to weed, and weed is giving you something so that you feel that giving your life force away is worth it. But that's why it's called weed. A weed in the plant world, not marijuana, but any weed, what it does is a plant that sucks up all the resources that are around it, and the plants around it starts dying. And that is the spirit that people are inviting in without knowing at all what kind of contract they are signing, because this is part of her spirit, is to have this in extremely fine print where pretty much nobody will know. One of her tricks is to give you a lot at first and ask very little of you. So it feels like such a good deal. If I'm like, here's this brand new Ferrari and it's going to cost you $1,000, you'll be like, duh, just a no-brainer. I'm buying it right now. And then next time is, I'm going to give you a Honda and it's going to cost you $3,000. Okay, still a good deal. Not as good as the last time, but still good. And it starts like luring you in. And eventually, because you have been getting so much for so little, your body starts missing those times where you got so much out of each one. So the way in which we deal with that is by smoking more and more so that we can try to get what we used to at some point. And with each time, she's got you more hooked up into her claws and keeps sucking and sucking all of your life force. I know a lot of people are going to say, that's not me. Fine. That's great. It doesn't act the same way in everybody. But generally speaking, people who smoke a lot tend to leave things for tomorrow, have a little bit less of willpower. They are more on the couch, less active, and it reduces the people's vibration. We were talking about the vibration before, because it takes you away from facing yourself and facing your pain. It also takes away your power. It takes away this idea that you can heal yourself. Whereas ayahuasca is like, drink me, release, and don't drink me again, because it is you who's healing. Marijuana is, you are going to feel good as long as you're with me. The day that you stop, you're going to feel crappy again. And so instead of giving the power back to you, it makes you depend on her and give the power to her. So I feel like that summarizes, I really have a lot more to say about it, but it's a much dangerous plant than what it seems to be, because maybe the last thing I want to say is anybody who takes cocaine or heroin, even though those plants are probably more dangerous and more harmful in one way, they are also more clear into the deal that you are signing in this contract. Somebody doing heroin knows that they are about to mess their life up. Somebody doing cocaine knows that they are going to have neurotoxicity and that they are going to be famously chasing the dragon. They know it, and they are consciously or somewhat consciously deciding on that. But marijuana is tricky because you don't know what you're signing, and the face that it is out there of her, she is good for you and that she is a medicine.
I wholeheartedly agree with everything that you just said. And, what I have to add to that is many of the people that I know who do smoke marijuana, I think would even agree with you to some degree in recognizing that the use of marijuana is usually used as a form of disassociation from, and a lot of my friends who are highly intellectual, very intelligent, in their head a lot, will say, I use it to calm down in the evening so that I can start to settle down and relax. Otherwise, I'm in my head and I'm up until 3 a.m. being creative and doing things, right? And so it's almost as though they're using it as a form of control over ADHD or something. And what we do recognize of marijuana, when it became medical grade, it was used for people with cancer to help disassociate from the pain that they were feeling, the nausea from going through chemotherapy. It's always been a plant used to dissociate and to distract rather than to give, such as ayahuasca is very much a plant that is giving and pouring into you, versus marijuana is to distract and pull away. And something that I would like to bring to the viewer's attention who may disagree with this is swap out. So the amount of times that you're consuming the marijuana per day, swap that out for alcohol. If you were consuming alcohol at the rate at which you consume marijuana, you would be considered an alcoholic. So why is it not the same for the amount of consumption regarding marijuana? And alcohol is very much disassociating, burying, numbing yourself, removing you from the root. And when I came out of my ayahuasca ceremony, I had absolutely no interest in touching alcohol again. It wasn't even really a cognitive choice. It wasn't something I had to think about. I just was repulsed by it. And that's a pretty big statement because my former life, I was a sommelier and wine director for many years. And so I made my living off of
Mm.
working with some of the most beautiful wines in the world, similar to our dear friend Jennifer Estevez, who also transitioned away from it. And so as I started working with the plant, I became more and more energetically repulsed by things that were pulling me away from myself. And I recognized that alcohol through my meditation was numbing my ability to be very sensitive to self and to receive the messages that were meant for me to receive and to really focus on the healing that I needed to heal. And so with my clients that are trying to do the inner work, the first thing that I ask them is to stop their consumption of alcohol. And then the second thing that I ask them is to remove themselves off of dating sites. And then we move forward. So I 100% agree with you on this. And thank you for sharing. It's big. It takes a lot to be the voice that goes against the norm or to be the unpopular voice. And I also think it's avant-garde, and that you're just maybe a few years to a decade ahead of the consciousness that will become more mainstream of recognizing what you're saying to be very true.
Thank you, Lelanea. That's very reassuring. I think that being that voice also comes with a lot of self-doubt for moments.
Mhm.
If it's like
Yeah.
only you who's going against the current. I don't feel that way anymore, but there's still hints of it.
Mhm.
And I think every time that I hear comments like yours and people agreeing on, or that they were thinking these things already, it's validating and it does help me, stay in that truth. And I think because it's somewhat avant-garde, as you were saying, I also realized that in order for it to not be avant-garde, to because in a way I don't want it to be avant-garde. I want it both like that term, and also I feel like it also means that people are not going to get it. And my intention is really for people to get it, because I do want to live in a world where everyone is closer to a more healed version of themselves, right? Or to do that, there needs to be an awareness that we are all using numbing as a replacement for healing. And so if that awareness by itself can at least maybe one person who hears this say, wait a second, I don't want to numb. I thought this was okay. Because that's like the vibe that's around the energy of this plant, right? That it's okay. It's not the same as alcohol. It's not the same as cocaine. It's way more friendly. It's not as harmful.
Mhm.
And I want to say, at least plant the seed into your viewers that maybe that is not true. Maybe it is
Mhm.
as
Mhm.
harmful in different ways. Might not be
Mhm.
as neurotoxic, or it might not
Mhm.
be as hard on your liver like alcohol, but it might still be as harmful in ways that you might have not yet thought of or explored. And if somebody can be like, okay, I'm going to at least consider it,
Mhm.
and I'm going to consider that this is numbing, and that there is something that we could use instead of numbing, which is healing, to create the same effect. If you heal, you might be able to go back to sleep without depending on anything, or you might
Mhm.
enjoy life, or you might enjoy sex, or you might, whatever it is that your numbing mechanism is taking away. Then why not, right?
Beautiful. And so, the very foundation of my coaching practice, as well as this podcast, and the intention that is being set, is to introduce compassionate self inquiry and to support it. And so, the message very much is, if this triggers you, question it further, lean into it, because there's something there. And the foundation of
Mhm.
this work and this
Mm.
podcast is self awareness and open mindedness, because it's the opposite on the pendulum swing of dogma, right? And that is where expansion is, and that is
Yes.
where growth is. And so these are the conversations to be had, not to skirt around them. These are very much the conversations that will support us in our expansion of consciousness. And I love having people on this podcast and having these conversations myself. And I love being triggered, because that's an open door for me to explore myself deeper and further, and to resolve whatever root it is that is there. And so I'm really hoping that the listeners are participating in that mindset as well, or at least entertaining it for a little while.
That's such a great reminder. I think that was a perfect way to close at least this topic that we were talking about. It's okay to be triggered, and you can use it as an opportunity. It's also okay if you are not ready to use it as an opportunity and you want, or all you're ready for is to acknowledge that you're triggered, but still be overtaken by it. It's also okay to do that if you can bring some awareness that is what's going on. And if you're ready to be happy, or for a part of you to be okay with being triggered so that you can explore, then wonderful. Then this has gotten you one step closer to your healing. So I think that was a great comment at the end.